Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode 5 of Character Clinic. I'm Haley,
And I'm Carla.
and we are licensed therapists who are here to talk about our most relatable, our favorite fictional characters, and ways that we might work with them. So, would you like to announce who we're going to be talking about today?
Yes, so today we are going to be talking about Percy Jackson, the show. So we're really excited, and Haley specifically is a huge fan of the Percy Jackson series. I have only watched the newest show. Haley said I could not and should not watch the movie.
Right. Unfortunately, she has been banned from viewing the movies. If you know, you know. Um, I think there was one time when I was like going on and on about how excited I was for this show and how I wanted you to watch the series so we could talk about it, that kind of thing. I think there was one moment where you were like, "Oh, maybe I'll also check out the movies," and I was literally like, "No."
Yeah, so apparently the movies would just mess it up for me.
I will say, standalone, they are enjoyable. I also watched those two movies that they did make. I also watched those movies long before I actually read the books, and I enjoyed them. They're good movies. Um, when you don't associate them with the books.
I see.
It's just that the plot of them ends up going quite off from the direction of the books, and it's a 5-book series, the Percy Jackson and the Olympians book series. And I say that specifically because Rick Riordan, the author, kept adding on additional series that continue the storyline and the characters. But if we're talking about just Percy Jackson and the Olympians, that is a 5-book series, and they only made 2 of those movies because I think they ended up going down plot lines that they couldn't move forward with anymore. So the TV series, very happy to report that they have been quite accurate to so the first season, which I'm hoping is just the first of 5 seasons. We don't even have a confirmation that there will be a season 2 yet, which it panics me every day.
I
Um
hope there is because I really liked the
It was
series.
good. The reception has been wonderful. It's been fantastic. So hopefully so. And then the great thing is that we can always come back and talk more about them in the future, which we mention every time that we talk about something kind of early on. I am really familiar with the books and the series, and Carla has seen the series. And so we're probably going to mostly focus on the way that the series portrays them. But like I said, quite accurate to the books in a lot of ways.
As always, we do a client intake, an initial intake. So the initial intake is really about information gathering and trying to better understand the client, their presenting concerns, so the issues that they're coming to therapy with, and getting a better idea of how we can work with them moving forward in counseling. So we do an initial intake, and sometimes I'm the counselor, sometimes Haley is a counselor. And then after we finish the intake, we reveal who the mystery character is. And then after that, we talk about how we might work with them in therapy based on that initial intake that we did. So it's always important to note that an initial intake, we can make predictions about how therapy will go, and yet things can change. So, Haley, how has your week been? Anything good happen this week?
Well, if you can tell from my background here, if you are viewing this as opposed to just hearing it, you might have noticed that I moved. And so I'm really excited.
Exciting.
Yes, I moved closer to my office, and I'm in a new area, and I'm really excited about it. I just
Mhm.
moved on Sunday, and today is a Tuesday. It's a little bit chaotic still in my home right now, but I did manage to specifically set up my little podcast area, which is perfect.
Yeah, and now we're neighbors.
Yes. How far away do you think we live from each other? Maybe like 7 minutes.
Probably like a eight
I'm
minute
actually
distance.
pulling it up right now. Yep, 8 minutes. Nice prediction.
For me, I gave a presentation on OCD to a group of clinicians at a group practice called Think Tank Counseling. And that was really fun. I love giving clinicians more information about OCD just so that they know how to identify it. Sometimes it can be really difficult to identify. And so that's something that's really important to me as a OCD specialist and also as someone with lived experience with OCD. So I did that on Friday, and then this upcoming Friday, which it will have passed by the time that we've released this episode. But this upcoming Friday, I'm actually going to be giving another presentation on OCD at a BIPOC mental health clinician networking event.
That is so
I'm
cool.
excited and a little nervous because there's a lot more people there.
It sounds like you're gaining a lot of experience doing that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. We are going to go ahead and get started with our intake. I am going to be our counselor today, and Haley is going to be our mystery client. We'll go ahead and get started.
All right.
All right. Okay, so tell me what brings you into counseling today.
The school is making me come.
Okay, can you tell me a little bit more about why they're making you be here?
They seem to think that there's kind of something wrong with me, that I cause a lot of problems, that there's like trouble around me all the time. But I didn't cause any of it. I know it's going to sound like I'm making excuses, but I really don't feel I'm trying so hard.
Mm-hmm.
I try every year not to get kicked out of school.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that I'm wanting to get in trouble or cause problems. It's just the things happen around me and they blame me.
Yeah. So it feels um like
I guess I try to tell them, but they
mm-hmm.
just don't. Either they don't believe me or the explanations I give make it worse. Like if I tell them, sometimes I see things that they tell me aren't real. Like it's there 1 minute, I blink, and then it's gone. And it's just a weird thing. Or just stuff happens around me. And then I try to tell someone, this just happened. It wasn't me. And
Mm-hmm.
then they tell me I have to go talk to you because there's something wrong with me.
Yeah. Yeah, gosh, that must make it hard to be here because you're here because someone made you come here because believe that they didn't believe what you were saying.
Yeah, I mean, I'll I'm not opposed to being here.
Mhm.
I would like to know what it is that's wrong with me and I'd like to fix it. I'd like to do whatever I can to make it all stop being such an issue for me and the school and my mom, and just I don't want to be causing problems. So I'll, you know, take whatever help I can get to make things go easier, but I just don't know what that is because I really can't figure out why it's always me.
Mm. Yeah, well, that's what this intake is for me to gain a better understanding of what's going on with you, what's going on in your environment so that we can figure out ways to make it better and to help. So, what I'd like to do is I'd like to just ask you some questions today, if that's okay.
Okay.
Okay. So, tell me a little bit about some of the issues going on at school.
Well, I do get picked on a lot and I don't really have any friends except for one kid who was the only one that was willing to talk to me and he
Mhm.
became my best friend. But again, he's the only person willing to talk to me and he's great. But if we're not being outright ignored and avoided, then the other kids that do pay attention to us, throw things at us, push us up against things, call us weird things, like mock us. And so it's not pleasant. And then the teachers are just endlessly frustrated. And the school part is so hard. And it's not for lack of trying.
Mhm.
It's just, I don't know. They give instructions that it just doesn't seem, they don't always seem very doable. And then
Yeah.
they're just, it seems like when I ask for help, they just repeat the same instructions. Like, just do it. How?
Yeah. Yeah, so it it feels like the help that they're trying to give you doesn't work for you.
No,
Yeah.
no. It's it's like there's a total disconnect
Mhm.
between what I'm trying to do and what happened.
Yeah. Like there's a fundamental difference.
Yeah, absolutely that. There's just something that's what I'm really hoping, like, to figure out if there's just one thing that's just different about me that we could name and fix, and then I don't have to deal with this anymore.
Mhm. Yeah. Do you ever feel like you're very different from your classmates and the people around you?
Endlessly, all the time. I feel like nobody first of all, barely anybody tries to relate to me. The only one I feel like I can really relate to my friend. And, other than that, the only person in the world that I feel like listens to me is my mom.
Mhm. Can you tell me a little bit more about your mom? Tell me about your relationship with her now and when you were younger.
My mom is just the best mom in the world, and, she's she's always happy to listen. She believes me. Every single thing that I say, she believes me. And it's not
Mhm.
even just trying to make excuses for me. She actually hears me and doesn't just judge what I say, and she supports me and she's there for me, and I wish I didn't have to be away from her so much.
Yeah. So, out of everyone in this world, she is the one person that fully understands you, fully sees you.
Yeah, because I mean, my friend comes pretty close, but I mean, that's just a friend, you know? Like, in terms of family, she's all that I have. I have no other family except for my that guy that she's married to, who I don't know why he's
Mhm.
around.
Can you tell me a little bit more about him?
He is the smelliest person in the world. And just he's so mean all the time.
Mhm.
And honestly, it's as hard as it is to be away from my mom while I'm at boarding school, at least I don't have to be around him.
Yeah. So, one positive about boarding school is that you can be away from him.
Yeah, definitely that.
Yeah. And his smelliness,
Yeah, it's rancid. You would not believe.
what does it smell like?
Rotting meat. It's really unpleasant. And like anytime he is around other people, nobody comes near us.
Mhm. That must be even worse because it already feels like you're, um, very different and isolated, and then him being around, that must make it worse.
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. So, it sounds like you have a really good relationship with your mom, and your mom is someone who really understands you fully and can see you fully. Um, Tell me about your friend.
Um he just kind of joined our school one day, and even though everyone else avoids me and ignores me or bullies me, he just walked right up and introduced himself and sat down and was not bothered by anything about me. Um, we started talking and started hanging out, and instead of the more he got to know me that he would pull away, instead he's been totally unfazed. He's
Mhm,
been he's into all the stuff that I am, so we get along really great, and none of my whatever it is about me has pushed him away, which makes
mhm.
him, you know, very different from pretty much anyone else I've ever met.
Yeah. So, he is someone who really cares about you and who you really care about,
Yeah.
and someone who didn't have a preconceived notion about you or judgments about you.
Yeah. It's almost like he was prepared for me to be who I was, and he wasn't surprised.
Yeah. It's almost like it was a friendship that was meant to be.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah. I read in your the paperwork that your mom filled out that you were diagnosed with ADHD and dyslexia. What has living with ADHD and dyslexia been like for you?
Um, difficult. My mom says that my brain just processes a little bit differently and that my experiences of like my perspectives and the way that I think and the way that my thoughts and experiences are organized just happen differently, maybe sometimes at different speeds, maybe with different focuses. And it's just hard because at school, it's all just done the same way over and over again.
Hmm.
And that way is not one that I figured out how to crack.
Yeah.
It's like it just doesn't fit. It's like square peg round hole situation.
It makes sense why you would feel so different from everybody else. And it sounds like you're trying to fit into a world that wasn't made for you.
It feels exactly like that.
And that really sucks.
It does. It's extremely hard. It's isolating, it's lonely, it's kind of terrifying, really frustrating. Because again, it's not that I'm not trying extremely hard every day,
Mhm.
but just something is very different.
Something that's important to know about a lot of people with ADHD is that they tend to be out of the box thinkers. And I'm wondering if you feel like that describes you.
I guess. I mean, I'm honestly kind of tired of people trying to describe me being different in a way that is somehow a special, good, positive thing because it doesn't
Mhm.
feel that way. And I
Yeah.
get that there will be parts of it that make things different in a cool way, but I haven't found any of those parts yet. And if they're still out there, then I'd sure love to know about them.
Yeah. Yeah. So maybe you've had people describe it in that way and there it hasn't resulted in anything good anyway.
No, people spend time dropping hints to me all the time, like, "Oh, maybe there's something special about you," but then they don't tell me what. And then instead,
Mhm.
in the meantime, I just keep getting blamed for random trouble that follows.
Well, I'm curious if you were in an environment where there were more people like you, what do you think life would be like?
That would be incredible. I can't imagine that such a place exists, but if it did, that would be a game changer for sure. That would be really nice. Yeah, it sounds mythical.
What are some things that you would like to work on?
Well, I guess I'd like to know how I can just fit in better, stay out of trouble better, just do things the way people expect me to do them, because it seems to be all they want from me. Um, but also I do kind of feel angry all the time.
Mm,
All the
tell me more
time.
about that.
Well, it just feels so unfair. Like, on one hand, I'm expected to just change everything about myself to fit into someone else's mold for me. Why is that the way that it has to be? I'm just a kid. Why is it that they don't have to change to figure out how to teach me?
Mhm.
Why do I always get treated this way? Why does nobody listen to me? Why do I not know who my father is? Why do I have nobody else in this world? It's all so unfair and it's
Yeah.
so lonely.
Sometimes with anger sometimes is a secondary emotion, and there are times when there's an emotion underneath. I'm wondering if there might be an emotion underneath the anger for you.
I think so. I'm having trouble naming it right now,
Mhm.
but
That's actually something that we can work on in counseling is trying to figure out what emotions are underneath the anger.
I think that would be helpful. But one of the biggest things is just feeling really lost and that I have been lost and abandoned and neglected because I supposedly have some actual dad out there somewhere,
Mhm.
and he's never wanted anything to do with me.
Ooh,
It's the worst feeling in the world. Feels like I'm not good enough for anyone, not even my own dad.
yeah. I can understand why you would feel that way, and also how the world around you has reinforced that feeling of not being good enough.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head.
Yeah. So maybe in therapy, we can work on understanding those feelings of not being good enough, processing anger and feeling lost. We can also work on gaining some coping skills. It's not fair that the world is hard for you, and it's not your fault, and it's not fair, and maybe we can work on gaining some coping skills to be able to better cope with that.
I think that sounds good. I'm willing to do whatever it takes.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, well, that's gonna be it for today. Do you have any questions for me before we finish today?
No, I can't think of one.
All right, Haley. So, how do you feel like that went?
Really good. We definitely got to all of the main parts, I think, of this character's backstory and the
Mhm.
really, really relevant elements that will make up their entire character trajectory. But also, we got to talk about some really big things that, in some ways, have been similar to some things we've already talked about before. Um, this person reminds me a lot of Charlie when we talked about him in Heartstopper. Um,
Yeah.
but a lot of new things also that we have not yet gotten to talk about that I'm really excited to be able to talk about. So, the character that we were talking about for today is, of course, the titular character, Percy Jackson himself. That probably came across really clearly with the
Mhm.
amount of backstory that we had.
Percy Jackson, everyone. I have a question for you that might catch you a little bit off guard. It's not a question that I have asked or that we've asked before, and I do think it is a very relevant question. What were you wanting to portray, or how were you wanting to portray Percy while you were playing him during the intake?
Yes. So, first of all, another thing that is helpful to point out is we're talking about Percy um, in the very beginning when he's still at Yancey. So, this is the very beginning of the series. This is before he knows that he's a demigod. This is before he leaves Yancey to go to Camp Half. The most important things to portray were his feelings of loss, isolation, feeling really, really different from everyone around him, and feeling misunderstood and unknown, unseen, except for maybe by his mom and Grover. I didn't get around to using this word because I'm not sure that he would have labeled it. I did struggle a bit because I'm trying to acknowledge that he at this time is a 12-year-old, but at the same time I'm
Mhm.
clearly using phrases that only I as an adult would use. So that we had to suspend our disbelief a little bit for that. I didn't speak in a very 12-year-old type of language. But when you were asking what is underneath the anger, I think the answer for him is grief. At least one of these main things, in addition to feeling very lonely, isolated, feeling scapegoated by
Yeah.
all of his peers and school administrators. But he also feels grief for the relationship that he should have been able to have with his father. And then also the fact that the only person in the world that he felt close to, he doesn't understand why he can't be with his mom, why he can't live at home and go to school where he gets to come home every day. He doesn't understand that he's being put in a boarding school for his safety because of his status as a demigod. Like, he doesn't understand any of that. And so it's devastation and it's grief and it's loneliness and it's a feeling of neglect and
Yeah.
all of that ends up fueling the way that he does perceive himself and the gods when he does learn that he's a demigod.
Yeah, as you describe that, I just see him as someone who's very strong because I mean, he has to deal with all of that and is still trying to just do his best. He's still trying to be a good kid. He's still trying to figure out like how can I, do what people are asking of me? Like how why I don't know why all this is happening and I'll still try my best to do better. So, he's definitely very resilient.
Yeah, he definitely is very strong. He does try. He still has so much capacity for um working on things. And like I kind of also wanted to set it up to appear that he is not yet burnt out from trying.
Not jaded.
Even though he very much could go down that road. I think if he were to stay in that pattern of his life for
Mhm.
that much longer, he probably would have become. But fortunately, he learns all the truth and everything when he's 12. And so he is able to get out when he still has some fight in him. So, Carla, would you like to share what some of your short term goals would be for Percy?
Yeah, so one of my short-term goals would be teaching him some coping skills. So, while none of this is his fault, um, there are times when you do have to still learn ways of coping with things that are, again, not your fault. And so I would probably teach him some DBT skills, also some mindfulness skills. Those can be really helpful with ADHD. Um, it would have to be tailored to speaking to a 12-year-old. I wouldn't be talking about mindfulness to a 12-year-old the same way that I would be talking about it to an adult. I also would want to teach the people around him those coping skills as well so that they can help him. And with that said, I would want to advocate for him to receive the accommodations that he needs to at school. So, help put some kind of IEP, which is an individual education plan, set up for him at school because it is really important for him to have that. And I've seen it benefit people to be able to have those in place anywhere from starting in kindergarten all the way even through college having accommodation. Also helping him identify and label his emotions. I mean, at 12 years old, it can be difficult already, but just having words for your emotions can help a lot. Being able to label them can actually help you cope with them and process them. And so, those are some of the short term goals that I would want to work on with Percy. Haley, how about you?
Those are fantastic. I 100% agree with every single one of them. Um, Definitely would want to immediately get on the phone, get in the emails, and be working on coordinating with his mom and the school to figure out all of the accommodations that he needs for his ADHD, for his dyslexia, to make school actually a lot more feasible for him. Because the description that we used in the role play of it feeling like the school setup is just not conducive to the way that his brain works is very accurate to that experience. And so we would want to change it so that the school can accommodate what he needs as opposed to trying to force him to fit into a box that he won't fit into. And then additionally, I really like the idea of focusing on his attachment trauma and working with him on feeling a lot more connected to people, feeling a lot more supported, and building up some of his ability to trust other people down the line. I'd like to bring his mom in and maybe have parent consultation sessions to just build attachment with him, just build that secure attachment and
Mm,
help him build these skills to feel more capable of seeking support from other people. What you mentioned of building that emotional vocabulary, totally agree
mhm.
with that. And then also putting that into use of getting him to feel comfortable um, expressing how he feels about what he's going through so that he can label it, acknowledge it, and process it through. And so
Yeah,
this would be something that I'd want to get started on pretty quickly for him. But it'd also be kind of an overarching theme for him is addressing that attachment. What are some of your long-term goals for Percy?
once we have been able to label and increase feeling vocabulary, I would want to start to process the past with him, start to process, not even just process the past, but some of the things that you mentioned, those attachment wounds and grief related to not knowing his dad, feeling abandoned by his dad, the way that people see him. I would want for us to work on better understanding that and how that's led to who he is today. I would want for him to start to gain a little bit of awareness around the things that matter to him and whether he's acting in line with his values. I know I always bring it back to that, but I think that he would find that he probably is, and I think it would give him a lot of self-confidence that, I don't have to act like everybody else acts. I can just be true to myself, and that knowing that I am being true to myself will help me to gain some self-confidence and to feel good about myself. I would also really want for him to learn, or not for him to learn, I would want to help him find his tribe. So find his people. Who are people that will accept you? So there's not only one Grover out there. There's going to be other people out there who are going to accept you for who you are and who probably need a friend who will also accept them for who they are. And Percy is someone who is very open, and I think that he would accept people for who they are. And so I would want him to find his tribe. I think that would take time and effort, but that's something that I think would be helpful. And then lastly for me, and this one is I guess an interesting goal because it reminds me of, and we know that this happens in the show, but it reminds me of Wednesday and the way that things changed for her when she changed her environment. So I would want to advocate for him to be able to go to a school where there are kids who are a lot more like him. And in this case, he ended up going to the summer camp, right? But kind of like how Wednesday went to the non-normie school. What was the school called?
I could not tell you. I do not
Uh,
remember.
I don't remember either, but she went to the that school. I would want to advocate for him to be able to be in an environment that suits him a lot better, if that were possible. Because again, it's not his fault. None of this is his fault. And he deserves to be around people who understand him and he deserves to feel seen. And
Yeah.
so, if that were possible, that's something that I would want to help him advocate for.
I think that's a fantastic point. In real life with my clients, now I will say I have a tremendous amount of clients that are in this exact age range, like
Mhm.
preteens, early teens. 11, 12, 13, 14 is really popular for me. And
Mhm.
so it is kind of this experience of you're starting to really focus on forming your own identity. Not that you haven't always been forming your own identity, but really being aware of it and really focusing on it and really questioning it at this age. And so I completely agree with that one that you mentioned. Well, all of the ones that you mentioned, but just going off the most recent one that you said, usually in my office, when we're talking about trying to help someone find ways that they can find their people, I will frequently advocate for if they can't switch schools, if switching schools isn't necessarily a feasible or realistic option, or if it isn't just automatically like the school itself is the problem, then I would advocate for joining things that you can do. Sometimes that looks like sports teams. Sometimes that looks like music groups or extra like classes, like art classes, joining certain clubs, or, doing community theater is a really common one. Those kinds of things, just joining something that is based on something you yourself already love doing and care
Mhm.
about. And then be placed in an environment where other people also love and care about that same thing, and you're more likely
Yeah.
to be surrounded by like-minded people. So I
Yeah.
totally agree with that. That's something that I would like to advocate for him as well. Um, I think for Percy, for the long term, being able to work on his trust of other people, his ability to connect with other people,
Mhm.
he and this is really common when we continue talking about attachment, and the way that he has grown up feeling very neglected and abandoned by his father. I'd want to help him, kind of exactly as you were alluding to already, is realizing that there are other growers in the world, that not everybody he meets is going to be like Nancy, for example. Um, Helping him work on spotting what are the red flags and green flags, and this is a person I want to be around, and this is a person I maybe don't want to be around. Um, this is how I want to feel when I'm around people. This is how I do and do not deserve to be treated. And this is how I want to feel and interact with people. And so now I know what to look out for when the fit is right. Just kind of spending time talking about what does it look and feel like when there's a person that is safe, that I can maybe start to trust, that I can befriend, so that I don't struggle too hard to allow myself some vulnerability and emotional intimacy with other people, so that he can start
Yeah.
to lower his walls a little bit and connect with more people. And then I think this will become like a cyclical experience for him, where the more he lets his own walls down, the more he will grow closer to other people, the more he will be reminded, oh, okay, it is okay if I let my walls down, and that it'll just keep building on itself.
I think we've covered everything we needed to cover. So that'll be it for this episode. Is there anything that we want to plug before we finish?
So the next episode that we will release is going to focus on Attack on Titan, which is very, very exciting. That is one that I am brand new to, that Carla has known for a while. So it'll be really fun.
Yes, I have watched all of Attack on Titan, and I'm really excited because I've really loved the series a lot. I've loved the anime. It's a roller coaster, but I think it'll be a great episode, and I am looking forward to hopefully playing a character. I know that I've been the counselor for the last few sessions. It won't be like that every time. I definitely will be playing some characters. It just happened to, for reasons, it just ended up happening that way.
Yeah.
But
Well,
it won't be like that every time.
Well, one thing I noticed is we tend to, the person that is the most familiar with the source material tends to take on the role of the character. And so that's what we've
Mhm.
done for Percy and for Parks and Rec. And then probably we'll reverse it for Attack on Titan, since you are more familiar with it.
Yes. Yeah, so definitely we'll probably reverse it, and we don't even know, we couldn't tell you guys what character we're gonna do because we don't even know
We
yet.
have not decided
So,
yet.
yes, something to discuss. But that will be our next episode, so I'm really excited about it.
Yes. And as always, you can find us across our socials. We are at Character Clinic Pod on Spotify, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, everywhere. And then you can find me on Instagram and TikTok as Counseling with Haley. And then you can find Carla in multiple places as well.
So you can find me on Instagram. Actually, I changed my handle, so Instagram and TikTok is Carla Pineda OCD. If you're in Texas and are looking for a counselor that specializes in OCD or anxiety, you can go to my website, layerscs.com. I usually work with people who are ages 16 and up. We have some interesting things in the works, and very excited about those things.
Yes. And I really hope now that it comes to fruition, because I would hate to have plugged it and nothing happens.
I know. I hope you all like this episode, and we will see you in our next episode. Or you can hear from us. Every time I
We will
always say
see you.
that, but
We're going to pretend that we can see you. We're going to picture you.
yes. Yes, you will see us in our next episode.